Moving on from baptism and the baptismal waters, the next one would be a toy that's given to children that is focused on orienting them to the stories of the Christian faith. We're going to do two toys. This is the first one, is a nativity set. So it's sort of fallen apart on me here, but you can see there's a little baby Jesus right here with a halo on his head or something. And then there's some people. There are some, if you can see them, are some animals. There's a camel. There are sheep, but the sheep have gone away at the moment. There's a donkey of some sort. And I think maybe these are supposed to be like the three wise men that come to visit Jesus. They sort of get lumped into nativity scenes. The first thing that I think is worth considering is just the commercial aspect of it. That this is a toy that's marketed. It's marketed to parents. It's safe for kids. It's sort of this rubber material. You could chew on it if you wanted to. I'm not going to, but this is a thing you can give your kid. It's got bright colors and patterns. It's got interesting textures to feel. And there's this idea that, well, now the camel's gone. There's this idea that if you give this to your child, you're doing part of your duty to religiously socialize them. And part of what's interesting to me is the message that you, as a parent, need that you need help to socialize your children, that you need resources. Here's a thing that you can spend money on that's going to help you. And I'm not saying that's bad. I think that it's conceivable that parents do need help. But I think it's worth noting, good or bad, that this is part of what's going on here, is this marketing relationship. The other thing that I think is interesting about this, and we're going to deal with this some in the next artifact too, is just the way in which the story has been rendered safe for children. Everyone is miniature. The people are small. The whatever this is small. There's a little musical jingle that plays if you press this. If your parent hasn't taken the batteries out because it's annoying. Everything is safe. Were you to read the story in the Christian scriptures, you would find a very different story. That's not safe. That indeed is quite frightening. I won't go into that here because that's not our purpose, but just to say that there's something here that's being communicated, I think, to parents about this is how you teach the story. The story needs to be taught in a safe way. The story has to be altered to be presented to the child. I'm not saying that's wrong. If you've read the stories of the Bible, you'll know that the stories in the Bible are not for children. There's a lot of murder. There's a lot of sex. There's a whole lot of doing wrong, and there are whole sections of Scripture given over to why do bad people get away with bad things and still have good lives. This is it's not the kind of thing you want to read your 4-year-old. So I'm sympathetic to wanting to sort of make it safe. I just think it's interesting to think about that decision. Moving on to a very explicit example of this sort of protective children's stories. If you don't know what this is, you're in for a treat, because this is maybe one of the weirdest things of American Christian culture. This is an arc. There is a story in the beginning of the scriptures that tells the story of a time when injustice or sin or oppression or whatever you want to call it was so rampant that God decided he just needed to start over, and so he told a person to build a boat. That person and his family and 2 of every animal got onto the boat, and God killed everyone else. And for some reason, we've decided that this is a good story for children. And so that's what this is. With children, we give them these little arcs. We put little animals inside of them. Here is an elephant. Here is a monkey. I also have a dove. Those are sort of an important Christian animal symbol. And this is a giraffe. We like to pick jungle animals because everything in childhood is about jungle animals. And then you have little holes you can fit the animals in. And this is how we sort of teach them about this story. It's an odd thing. And I say that self-deprecatingly. This is a weird thing that my people do. But it's a thing. The craft work on this is decent. It feels like balsa wood, or actually I think this might be sort of laminated plywood. There are inexplicably little stars next to the waves right here. The animals all have big eyes. It's sort of cutesy. And again, I'm met with this this idea that this is marketed to parents. And so when I think about, I want our guiding questions for all of these to be, how does this position the child, and how does it position the parent? And when I think about how this positions the child, it positions the stories as accessible. It positions the stories as things that they can interact with, that they can play with. It's the same with this. How it positions the parent is that your child will be best socialized through play. And if you buy these things, it will help with that process. The parent then becomes a purveyor of instructional toys. Again, I'm not criticizing here. I pulled these from my own home. But that's interesting to think about. That is what's communicated to the parent, is that the stories need to be made safe, they need to be made playable, and this is a way to do that.